and thanks for joining us this afternoon about how our community begins to recover from the impacts from the health pandemic. We are grateful for the support of our regional government and community partners who are here today to support the city in its efforts. I will be joined at the podium by Council members Candice Mom and Michael Cathcart, County Commissioners Josh Kearns and Al French, and Alicia Benson, President and CEO of Greater Spokane Incorporated. GSI helped distribute earlier rounds of federal pandemic funds throughout their community, so it was important to have them here with us today. Each will talk about ways to work together in the community to make the most of the resources that we have been given. Individuals, families, employees, employers have experienced significant physical, emotional, social turmoil over the past year and a half. The city recently received the first half of about $80 million that we'll get over the next 2 years in Federal American Rescue Plan funds. And as a region, about $200 million is coming to the county, other municipalities, and schools, creating unique opportunities for collaboration over the next 3 years. Public engagement, I believe, is the first critical step to a strong regional economic recovery. Everyone, I understand, is anxious to get these funds into the community. And the smarter, more intentional way that we go about this will result in better outcomes in the end. Final guidance on how local governments can spend these funds are still coming from the U.S. Treasury, and we need to wait for that guidance before we allocate any funds, which gives us time to talk to the community and partners about where the needs are and how we best collectively can meet those needs. So the city is proposing a comprehensive 3-part public engagement process that includes in-district, drop-in style open houses, a telephone town hall, and virtual thought exchange. This will give people multiple chances to engage in the dialogue, offer in-person and in-home options, and also considers how to collect that feedback broadly from the many different perspectives. We're also working together to finalize a charter to formalize the process for soliciting, evaluating, and allocating these federal funds. You know, it's been a long time since the federal government has invested in cities the way it's investing right now. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. These funds are to help our recovery and are above and beyond any annual budgeting process that we go through. Allocating them requires a very thoughtful approach that considers collaboration with regional government and community partners as the starting point. We only regained the ability to meet publicly less than 3 weeks ago, and we are acting quickly to engage our community. I appreciate the urgency we all feel to accelerate that recovery process. Taking the time now, though, to set up the success will give us opportunity to make a generational impact in our city and region for years to come. So at this time, I'd like to invite Councilmember Mom to the podium.
Good afternoon. This is your money. These are your federal tax dollars coming back into the community, and we want and need to hear from you about how to spend it. This community engagement is the kickoff, but I want to tell you that the council for many months has been working on setting up the framework for this short and long-term investment for a healthier, safer, and more sustainable economy. Our reserves are sound. We set that up before the pandemic. So this money that's being returned to us is money that for the first time we can actually look at how we can collaborate with the county and the cities around us to invest in regional partnerships. I happen to be vice president of the Association of Washington Cities, which collaborates with the 281 cities in the state of Washington, and I can tell you the ARP funds are the number one thing that we are talking about. Already, the other two large counties in the state, Pierce and King, have already published their ARP plans. Other cities have done so as well, like Kirkland and Lakewood. We are just in time to do the same. As the legislative body of the city, the council has been working diligently to establish a process for vetting and awarding grants. We have formed an American Recovery Plan work group to receive initial proposals with a first consideration of September 1st of this year. We have 3 other dates that have been set and adopted through our resolution that will go through November of 2022. Tonight, the council will consider next week's special budget ordinance to hire 3 temporary staff members, 1 to assist with processing the grants, 1 for compliance, and 1 for public engagement. This is all in collaboration with the mayor's office and the counties and the county and the cities around our region. Eric Polson, who is our intergovernmental affairs coordinator, will be the point person for the city council to have that feedback and to work with the mayor's office and work with our nonprofit partners and other points of contact from other governmental entities to assist us in finding the best place to put your money for the future of our region. I'd now like to invite up my seatmate, Councilmember Michael Cathcart.
Thank you. You know, one of our most precious resources that we have here are the taxpayer dollars. And that's, as has been said, that's exactly what we have in front of us. We have 82 million taxpayer dollars for us to spend that have been passed through to the city by the federal government. And for us, it is really critical, I believe, that we operate in a very thoughtful and a very cautious manner to make sure that we are spending these dollars in a way that's going to provide the biggest bang for the buck for our community, that is going to lift up some of the underserved areas of our community, particularly Northeast Spokane that I represent. It's really important that we are listening to the people in our community as to how to spend these dollars. We all have ideas. I've submitted my own ideas on things that I think would have a positive impact on Spokane, but the best ideas are going to come from the people that we serve. And it's really important that we have this expanded and enhanced public engagement process so that we can hear directly from those individuals. There may be some grand ideas that would never occur to us. There may be some areas that are ripe for investment that could help to launch us into the next stage of what Spokane may be. But we need to hear from the people to identify what those are. And if we squander this opportunity, what is really a once in a lifetime, again, as has been said, a once in a lifetime opportunity, if we squander it and we don't spend these dollars in the right way, in a thoughtful way, we're going to regret it. But the people out there are the ones who are going to suffer for it. And so it's really important that we are getting their input, we are doing this right, and that we are listening to everyone in our community. So I am happy to support this expanded public engagement process. I'd love to see more processes like this across the board for city policymaking. But I think this is going to be a really good path to getting a lot of really good ideas and to spending this money in the best way that the city can. I'll turn it over now to Commissioner Josh Kearns.
Hello, I'm your County Commissioner Josh Kearns. I'm chair of the Board of Spokane County Commissioners this year. As has been said multiple times today, these ARP dollars are a huge opportunity for our region and for our community. One of the things that I do want to point out is that I believe it was Friday that the public comment portion closed with the Department of Treasury, so we still are waiting on those final guidelines on how these dollars can be spent. I will tell you from experience with the CARES Act dollars, guidance can change very often monthly, if not weekly, on what the sideboards are on how those dollars can be spent. We have until the end of 2024 to allocate these funds and the end of 2026 to spend these funds. So just want to make sure that everybody understands sort of what the parameters are that we know today, but the actual guidelines and the guidance on how the dollars can be spent, those final parameters, we are still waiting for those to arrive. I believe collaboration is very important in this process when it comes to idea and information sharing. We've had discussions at the Board of County Commissioners to stand up our Regional Council of Governments, which is an event that we traditionally hold twice a year. And that will give us an opportunity to meet with other elected officials around the region, our city partners, to share information and ideas. None of these jurisdictions have a monopoly on good ideas, so it is always great to share information with our regional partners to make sure we're getting the best bang for our buck with these dollars. Spokane County will be receiving a little over $100 million, and it's important that we have those conversations, but at the same time understanding that it is up to those individual jurisdictions to decide how those dollars will be spent. Every city is different within our community, has different needs, and it'll be up to those elected bodies in those individual jurisdictions to decide how best to spend those dollars. But again, idea sharing and information sharing is going to be key to make sure that we spend these dollars as efficiently as possible for the betterment of our community as a whole. Now I will welcome up County Commissioner Al French.
You know, as we look at this opportunity, we have to understand the roles that the different governmental entities play within the region. For instance, with the CARES funding, the county played the major role in supporting those regional efforts. We provided the funding for the regional health district to be able to respond to this pandemic. We provided the funding to our K through 12 schools, as well as our universities, as well as our small business, and also individuals that were trying to get to work but needed the PPPs to be able to go to work. So on a regional basis, that's what the county does, is look at those regional needs. And certainly there's opportunities to participate with the jurisdictions, the cities, to be able to find those opportunities to collaborate. And we'll be doing that as we move forward with the CARES, or with the ARP funding that's going to be coming our way. From my standpoint, one of the things that I'm hoping that we can do with this one-time opportunity is build resiliency in the community. How do we make our community stronger so that if and when we have to experience something like this again, we're a stronger community. We're prepared for it. We've built in the infrastructure and the organizations necessary to be able to respond in a much quicker and substantial way. So I look forward to this opportunity. As many have said, it's a one-time opportunity, so we cannot squander this. We cannot hurry into it. We must be very deliberative. We must be very thoughtful. And from my standpoint, I want to help try and make sure that we can get a multiple return on this investment. It's not one time, you're done. It's how do we get a multiplier effect out of this and leverage it for the benefit of the community. So I thank you all for being here. Be part of the conversation as we move forward. Be part of the solution as we take the next step in growing Spokane to be a better place for all of us. With that, I'll turn it over to Alicia Benson.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Commissioner. I'm Alicia Benson, the CEO of Greater Spokane Incorporated, and along with our partners, including the Greater Spokane Valley Chamber of Commerce, Downtown Spokane Partnership, Visit Spokane, the Inovia Foundation, and many others that serve hundreds of thousands of nonprofit and small businesses and businesses throughout our community, we're committed to supporting our government partners in their investment of ARP funds here in the region. We're supportive of their strategic process that is inclusive and prioritizes engagement, collaboration, and coordination amongst entities and across communities. Throughout the pandemic response, GSI and our partners have had the opportunity and experience to work side by side with our businesses as their interest in state and federal funding to help them both survive and thrive throughout the pandemic. And building off of that now, we're thinking about recovery, shifting to that focus of recovery in the next years for our region of the economic recovery. As an economic development ecosystem, we're focused on the supports needed for an inclusive small business recovery, for a recovery that supports those industries and sectors and employees most impacted by the pandemic, and seeding investment in our region's long-term economic development, infrastructure, innovation, and growth opportunities. The steps we take now and going forward are going to drive our economic direction for many years. It's important that we realize that these investments are both in recovery and in growth, and that we bring our region and our residents as part of the process. It's critical that we're strategic about this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and that we're able to leverage the multiple different organizational strengths. This is a moment for creating generational investment and generational change. We must keep focus and balance on having the long-term impact at our forefront while also addressing the important and short-term needs of our communities. We're committed as a business and economic development community to working alongside our government partners and look forward to the path ahead as we chart our path of recovery, innovation, and growth. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm going to hand the program back to the mayor.
Well, I want to thank everyone for being here today to hear this message that I think is really important for our region on how we will approach the spending of these funds, the community engagement, and I want to thank all the stakeholders who were with us today to join us in this announcement as they support this effort. So just wondering if there are any questions.
It seems like, pretty much across the board, everyone's in agreement that this is a good way to spend this money. What would be the alternative? I mean, this seems pretty intuitive that you would have the community come and have input. So what would be the way, if you weren't doing this, that the money would normally get spent?
Well, we've had these funds, Casey, now for 2 months, and I think there is interest in the community on what's being done and how we're going to spend these funds and what we're going to do moving forward. So I think it was really important for us to let the community and the region know that yes, we may have had these funds for 2 months, but we're still waiting on final guidelines from the U.S. Treasury, and that this is what our approach is going to be. Now that all of the COVID restrictions have been lifted, we can meet together in person, that we're going to offer in-person and online options for community engagement. I think this is something that the community wants to know, how we're going to approach this. And I also think it's extremely important for people to know that we need to, as we spend these funds, these are one-time funds. They're not funds that we want to spend to stand up new programs or add on to programs that already exist, because that's not sustainable, but to strategically, as we restore services and as we help those who are struggling, households, families, businesses, that we also look at leveraging these funds for future investments to make that generational impact. So it's an important message.
This is kind of for the city and the county. I'm wondering if you can reflect on with what efficacy the city distributed CARES Act dollars last year, and what lessons you took from that you'll apply for the American Rescue Plan Fund.
Well, we set up a framework between the administration and the council and the communities to allow for solicitations. We had a work group that looked over and ranked those inquiries and suggestions. And then council had the final say in distributing those funds. So we actually had I think a very robust process. And as we finalize our charter for what the process will be here, I think you cannot over-engage with community and have a working group that measures, how we're going to spend these dollars. And I think that was really important and something that we learned. So we'll continue that process moving forward. And I don't know if county wants to answer that question. Josh, on county end.
So with the CARES dollars, one of the first things we did was we stood up an online portal and asked the community for input. We pushed that out in social media, we pushed that out in newsletters, we pushed it out through the media, and we asked people, bring your ideas to us and share with us how you would like those CARES dollars spent. Then the three of us, we got together, we looked over those, and we came up with what our priorities were. And our priorities were to combat food insecurity, was to make sure that we provided for public health through our regional health district, and to make sure that we provided support for our struggling businesses. And at the end of the day, we put, I believe, $9 million to the health district, over $10 million to our food banks and food pantries and other efforts to combat food insecurity, and over $33 million went in to helping our struggling small businesses through a variety of of different programs. So, from the start, we looked at what we wanted to do, and at the end of the day, I think we succeeded in our goal of making sure to lessen the impact that COVID had on our community by utilizing those CARES dollars. And we look forward to doing the same thing with these ARP dollars, and it's looking at where the gaps are. Where is the funding needed? Who is not receiving ARP dollars that needs ARP dollars? And those are the types of things that we're going to weigh in our decision-making process, just like we did with CARES funding as well.
Are there directives that come from Treasury in terms of what proportion of the money goes to different municipalities, or is there something where you guys meet up and you say, actually Millwood needs a lot more money than we thought that they were originally going to be directed to get, let's give them more money?
I don't think there's been any conversations about that as yet, but those are conversations that we can have moving forward. I think with everybody, getting some piece of this pie presents opportunities for all of us to work together regionally and see what we can leverage to make those generational impacts. We look at these monies going to restore services, to make businesses and families whole again, but also those strategic investments that will pay off dividends down the road to, again, make us more resilient so that the next time we experience a pandemic or anything similar to this, that we're in an even better position to withstand it. And as far as the city, our CARES money, we got $10 million. And through our process, we were able to distribute grants to struggling businesses, childcare, educational support for children who were learning online and in community centers, and also the arts and nonprofits. So that's where a majority of our funding went. Anybody else? Well, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. And again, thank you for all the stakeholders that were here. I know this was kind of something that we decided we really need to get this message out today. So I appreciate everyone's attendance. Thanks so much.